Hey, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. George Martinez here. So I'm going live on KGOT in a few minutes to have a conversation as a dad with KCB. And I thank KCB for having me on the radio today. And so you may not be able to hear both ways of the conversation, but I'll try to repeat the questions and hopefully give you an opportunity to see what we were talking about this morning. I'm really appreciative of the opportunity. So if you're live, listen to KGOT 101.3. Good morning, Casey. Well, Casey, thank you for having me on this morning. It's always good to hear from you, but I appreciate you using your platform to have these conversations. I appreciate you leaning into the role of an ally with respect to having recognized privileges that you know and using them or wanting to use them to support your community, right? So that's first and foremost. Let me just put that on the table so that folks who want to know how can people get involved, follow the lead. And so I just thank you for having me on for that perspective. There are lots of things to do with Casey. One of the things I wanted to focus on today as we talk is the implications to our children. And there is a history of success in Anchorage, and so I want people to recognize that we can make a difference. There are pathways to making a difference, and let's talk a little bit about them. Yes, 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 yes. That was a heartbreaking sign. My son carried a sign. You're right, at the "I Can't Breathe" rally, organized by many great community people, Jasmine Smith and Kevin McGee, many others. Just people leaned into it. First of all, it was beautiful, peaceful, and a real reflection of the hope that we have in Anchorage. But my son's sign that morning uh, was both a tribute to George Floyd and then also a plea. Unfortunately, my son is going to deal with the challenges that his father faced and our elders before that. Many of those challenges have been swept under the rug. Just we take for granted the healing often that hasn't happened, and then when it gets exaggerated in systems that kind of explode like we've seen nationally, eight and change minutes, 8 minutes and seconds on a person's neck, and every kid feels the threat of what that means, even if they don't experience it firsthand. And so, how it translates to a mind of a young person is really hard to understand. But I could see it in his face, the concern. I could see the fear, and I remember being a victim of racially motivated illegal police practices as a young person. I remember being classified as them, the criminals, versus the young people of the city who were just trying to succeed. And I grew up in a different city, a city that when we think of all of the names of people who have experienced death at the hands of illegal practices like this. I've seen them firsthand. So that my son has to experience even any concern or fear is retching to my heart. But I know that the resiliency is part of that what is going to make him stronger. And so to have him at the rally with that plea, asking questions to me, what is going on? What did this person mean? And what did that person mean? That's another thing that everyone who's listening to you, Casey, what you could do is educate our children to learn, to grow, to understand that there are differences. We may not experience them all in the same way, but to have the openness, the grace to be able to hear that. And but this is not new to my son. I mean, a few years ago, my son is a dual citizen, and he was concerned about whether or not he was going to be able to stay in the country. The trauma that my son has experienced through political trauma, and all of our children, even if we don't see it, and let alone through this type of narrative that happens that targets people that look like him and come from his community. We got a lot of work to do just to put the pieces back of giving our young people a sense that there is a future, that there is an opportunity to grow, and that it's not all lost. Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Right. Yeah. Well, a couple things. Like when we see the call for equity at a system level really rears its ugly head in police community relations that have not been healed, and within departments that have not been reformed, and with officers that have had careers that should have been ended a long time ago, right? So we see it really manifesting there. But quite honestly, in ASD in the school district, we have a disproportionate amount of uh, of behavioral and suspension issues that are, well, with respect to children of color. And in Alaska as a whole, we do have one of the highest per capita rates of violence against people of color, specifically, and it's like national level per capita against African American men and Alaska Native men. So there's a history all around us that sometimes we don't get a chance to see so visually and visibly, but it does over time permeate some of those relationships where if our young people see differences and see treatment differently, even if it's subtle, they're aware. We know that they're sponges. But let me even take a step back so I can give Anchorage a real sense that this is not new here, specifically in Anchorage. Let's bring the national conversation right down to home and give us some hope that when citizens get engaged like this and beyond, we can make a difference. In 1981, Cassell Williams was killed here in Anchorage, African American male, killed in Anchorage with a police shooting. And there was some controversy around that shooting. And uh, as a result of leadership from local organizations, NAACP here in Anchorage specifically, and much community involvement, reforms happened here in Anchorage, and a couple of reforms that were big. So first of all, so things happened here. There's a history here, and this is one case. and didn't hit maybe national level, and it may not be as rampant as L.A. or as New York, but it happened here, and there have been others. But the police review board was changed through that to include citizens and civilians. An African American and Alaska Native was added to that. The Department of Justice was brought into Anchorage to help do a review, and the fleeing felon. It used to be the case that you can shoot a fleeing felon in the back. That the rules of deadly engagement were changed here in Anchorage. So what I want people to recognize is that progress happens here because people work toward it. It's not because we're immune to what happens nationally. It's because there's a spirit, to your point, that we are all in this together at the end of the day. And when we can remind ourselves that, and we give ourselves the opportunity to work, those things can happen here in Anchorage. So changes can happen. And Anchorage, it looks good in some ways, better than it has been, improved, but it's not because we just started at that point. It is because of the work that has already happened. And so that's the new opportunity to reset in this moment, to rebuild in a new direction so that we can rebound with the next layer of opportunity and improvement here in Anchorage. But there is a history of struggle and opportunity that has already happened right here in our city. It's just not national. Yeah. I'm wearing this morning a Anchorage Cops for Community vest, Casey, and I'm live streaming with friends on Facebook as well, so they can hear the conversation. But I'm wearing this Anchorage Cops for Community vest. I'm an advisory board member of that organization that works with cops. And so just let me tell you directly, I've stood on the line against police brutality, against illegal stop and frisk policies, and I am prepared every day to defend my liberty and the opportunity for my child to grow free of fear of the police. And in Anchorage, I am, there are incidences and there are people's experiences, but on the whole, knowing what I know and with who I've worked with, we are doing things differently and right. And it's a lot of this is because our police are family members. They have their kids. Their kids are going to Little League with my kids. Our civil servants are engaged in life with everybody. We're all here together. And I've been working with the police specifically here in Anchorage for the last 3-4 years since Mayor Berkowitz started increasing the number of police to host Community Day with the new cadets and the young people of the diverse parts of our community, so that we can continue to build the trust and the relationship. So my point is, the police are open and have been willing to work here, and they've been doing that work. The chief of police just put out a statement, but the statement is a good statement right now. But I just want to say it reflects a body of work that many of us have been doing in the city, a dedication to that work. There's more to be done, and there's more resources we can lever to support community connectivity and opportunities for our young people. But our police do a really good job. I've personally seen and been treated really, really nicely before before anybody knew what I was doing, or even just don't know who I am at all. There's a lot of people in Anchorage, who don't take that for granted. And I've been treated at least with the respect that I can clearly say on 90 some odd percent of the interactions that I've had in other cities were not the same. So I have hope. They're ready to work. They've been involved in National Night Out. They want to expand more stuff. And then Cops for Community is another way that they continue to build rapport with all sorts of community organizations supporting civil society. So we got a good opportunity here, but we have to keep awareness going and deepen the programmatic connectivity to our young people in our community. But I have hope because we got some great law enforcement people. We got a department that is I just don't see them willing to risk their reputation that they've built so hard for defending the bad apples and for not doing the work. Yes, we have to stay. It's the connections keep us safe and healthy, right? But it gives us the ability to learn, and that's what's most important. And so, as people are listening, these are all teaching opportunities. For the last some odd months, all of us have become homeschooling parents. So, taking the opportunity to think of all of these lessons, and I would just encourage that people, what I do with my son is also go back in history. I don't want him to think these are flash in the pan moments. These are things that are just happening now. I want him to go back and look at struggles and successes, but from a historical perspective. I want him to understand the names of people that have come, that have been champions, and have also been victims. I also want him to know the names of people who have been the problems in history, so you can see what they look like when they reemerge again. Especially with respect to ignorance and the unwillingness to learn and grow. So, Casey, I thank you. There are people tuning in, and I encourage everyone to just keep the faith. Remember that we do have something special to preserve in Anchorage, and it doesn't mean that we're perfect, and it doesn't mean that there's not room for improvement and growth. There's substantial room for improvement and growth, but we can do that and lead the way where we just don't have to have the same experience that we are seeing in other places. And so I'm committed to that. And Casey, as a dad, it really is about our children. It breaks my heart to see any kid perplexed, working through the trauma of these issues that essentially are bringing life and death issues to them in such a terrible way. So it is an important conversation. I'm totally committed to keeping having it. I encourage all of our parents to again take this opportunity to teach, to learn, and if you and I'm available as a resource. Many of us are, and again, the NAACP locally is a really good resource to learn more about the historical nature of even what's happened in Anchorage, but then also to get involved and to get some direction of how to continue this conversation. Appreciate you, sir. Thank you. Absolutely, Casey. Solid, excellent. And as ever, and I'm looking to do a few other things. I would love to have your voice and participation as we continue to bring people together. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. So hey, everybody, I'm just getting off with KCB. A good conversation. Yes. So it was broadcast on KGOT that's where the questions were. KCB will post the podcast of that on his website. So he said within an hour. So take a look at that. And I would also say this morning, the conversation has to move into the next phase of work and organizing. And so I just encourage everybody to stay tuned. To continue to stay connected and reach out to all of your friends and make sure people are doing well, but also listen. One thing I want to challenge everybody is I want us to challenge the local elected officials to listen and to just come to the community with their ears open and figure out what they could do to be supportive of what the community is mobilizing around. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the streets.